Morning, everybody. As has been said, I'm Sue Christoforou, and I'm from Parkinson's UK head office, and I'm in the policy and campaigns team at Parkinson's UK, and my policy areas are welfare benefits, work and transport. And I thought it would be of use, perhaps to some at least, to talk about what options you have in terms of maximising your income, given the circumstances that we're all experiencing at the moment in terms of the cost of living. So, as it says, Sue Christoforou, policy and campaigns. I've been at the charity since the spring of this year, and prior to coming to Parkinson's UK, I did the similar kind of work at Macmillan and Citizens Advice, and also a mental health charity called Mind that some of you might be familiar with. So I'm going to talk about working age and non-working age benefits, some of which may not be relevant, but I shall just cover them at least, give an overview. Carer costs, the stuff that's specific to cost of living that the government have legislated for this spring. And then some other information about council tax discounts that you might be able to get, support with transport, and sources of information if you want to find out more. So, working age benefits. I realise this may not apply to many in the room, but it may apply to some. So, essentially, there's one means-tested working age benefit which is called universal credit. Some people might still be getting something called employment and support allowance, but that's being phased out. And the purpose of universal credit is to replace an income that you don't have because you're not working, but it is means tested. Also, for people who are of working age, there are benefits that are specifically for people who have a disability to cover the cost of living with a disability. Because as we know, there's adaptations, there's extra transport costs, there's extra heating costs, etc. So you could apply, if you're under state pension age, for personal independence payment as a contribution towards those costs. And there are two elements to it. One is about daily living, washing, cooking, etc. And the other is about mobility. So for non-working age people, there's obviously the state pension, but there are also means-tested benefits as well, or more particularly a means-tested benefit. So if your income, if you're a single person, is less than £182.60 a week, then you could get pension credit. And the figure for if you're as part of a couple is £278.70. You could get pension credit. Now you might find yourself in a position where you could apply for pension credit, but you do the calculation and you find out that all you're going to get is 10 pence a week. My mum gets 10 pence a week of pension credit, and that 10 pence a week doesn't buy her anything. It doesn't even buy her a single sweet. But what it does do is unlock access to other funds, which is the point of her, even though it's only 10 pence a week, still applying for pension credit. And I'll mention pension credit again as I go along when I talk about the funds that it does provide you access to. And then there's non-means tested attendance allowance, which is the state pension agent over equivalent of personal independence allowance. The point of attendance allowance is to cover the extra costs of living with a disability. It doesn't cover them entirely, but it is a contribution towards those extra costs. You'll be aware of carer's allowance, where a carer provides 35 hours a week of care to somebody who's either getting personal independence allowance or attendance allowance. Then you can apply for carer's allowance. However, if you're in receipt of state pension, your income might be such that, although technically you can apply for carer's allowance, your state pension will knock out, as it were, your eligibility to carer's allowance. And as I say, in the spring of this year, government came out with a series of payments to address the increased cost of living that we're all experiencing. So if a person is receiving universal credit or they're receiving pension credit, then they would be eligible for the extra £650 that government has made available to address the increased living costs. the first instalment of which should have been paid. If you're eligible and you haven't received that, contact the helpline and we'll help you get that cash. And the second instalment will be paid, or government says should be paid, by the end of next month. For those who are on disability benefits, for example PIP or attendance allowance, there's an extra £150, and that again should be paid by next month. And for pensioner households who get winter fuel payment, there's an additional £300. Everybody, as you know, is getting £400 off their electricity bill, and the first of the 6 monthly instalments should have been taken off your electricity bill already. If that hasn't happened, get in touch with us and we can chase that for you. And it's off your bill rather than in your bank account. So you won't see £66, £67 in your bank account.
It's not. I had a credit.
Sorry?
I had a credit. £66.
Yes, good. That's exactly.
Off my bill.
No, they paid into the bank. They went into the bank.
Perhaps it's different for different suppliers. Certainly mine has come off my bill, and government.
British Gas paid into my account.
Yes, I did too.
Okay, as I say, it might be depending on who your supplier is. In my case, it's been taken off my bill. In your case, it's been put into your account. But if you have not received the £66, £67 either in your bank account or off your bill, contact us and we can chase that for you. And as I say, there's 6 monthly payments, the first of which was last month, so do check in subsequent months that you're still getting that cash or that rebate. When Liz Truss was in for the whole 45 days that she was with us as PM, she announced the energy price guarantee. It was going to last for 2 years, but then she was overridden by Jeremy Hunt when he became Chancellor. So from the 1st of October it is, and now only until the 31st of March next year, there is a limit on how much you should be paying per year for your fuel costs. So, according to the energy price guarantee, if you're in an average household and if you pay by direct debit, your energy bill should not exceed £2,500, which is still a lot of money to pay. And of course, not everybody in this room is going to be in an average household, because for some people at least, cold aggravates the symptoms of Parkinson's. So of course, you're going to be putting on the heating more than somebody who doesn't have Parkinson's or doesn't have that response to cold. And just, I think it was last month, the National Grid announced the fact that they are going to enable energy providers to offer the demand flexibility service. So what that means is, if your energy provider, and not all of them are doing this, but if your energy provider has agreed, has signed up to this scheme, when you use electricity off peak, so putting the washing machine on after 10 o'clock at night rather than 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, then you will get a rebate for having used fuel off peak. As I say, not all energy providers are doing this. Mine isn't, Julie's is. So you need to check with your energy provider whether they are part of the demand flexibility scheme. And I'm going to send this round after this via Caroline, so you can all have this to refer to. So all the details are here. And there's some links to further information in this presentation, which you can then obviously click onto and find out more. Winter fuel payment. Government has just started promoting this. You could get between £250 to £600 depending on your age, and you must be claiming state pension and another benefit, for example pension credit, which is why, going back to the fact that my mum only gets 10 pence pension credit, it's worth claiming that. Even if you get a small amount in pension credit itself, it enables you to access things like winter fuel payment. As I say, depending on your age, could be between, well, would be between £250 and £600. But also that you will be eligible for this if you are getting state pension and attendance allowance. So if you are getting state pension and you are neither getting pension credit nor attendance allowance, apply now, is my strong advice. And if you're wondering, how do I apply, who could assist me, then contact Parkinson's UK, contact the helpline, because we have advisors and we have specialist benefits advisors, and their whole job is to support you accessing the cash that's available to you. That's available to you because you've paid national insurance and tax for the whole of your working lives. This is your money. There's also the cold weather payment. Looking outside, it seems the availability of this is not imminent, because the cold weather payment is only paid between November and March if there are 7 consecutive days where the temperature is 0 degrees centigrade or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and that doesn't look like that's going to be happening anytime soon. However, if it does happen, then this cold weather payment will be made available. And then there's a warm homes discount. Again, this is dependent on whether your supplier is part of the scheme, and you'd need to check with them. But if your supplier is part of the scheme and you qualify, i.e. you get guaranteed credit or pension credit and another means tested, or another means tested benefit, then you could get this extra £140 off your electricity bill. So again, if there's any chance you might be eligible for pension credit, even if it's 5-10 pence a week that you actually get paid in pension credit, it's worth doing to access other benefits, warm home discount being an example of one of those. You may have read that there's a chance of power cuts sometime this year or early next year, and I spoke to one of the infrastructure providers, which I think covers this area as well, as it covers quite a lot of the southeast, and I spoke to them, and what they advised me was this, that there may be planned power cuts. However, the likelihood is very low indeed. I asked them to put a percentage value on it, and they said it's about it was about a 5% chance of there being planned power cuts. But equally, it might not happen at all. If they do happen, they will probably be in January or February of next year. They would, if they do happen, they will last no longer than 3 hours at a time, and they'll be spread across the country. So it won't be the case that on the 24th of January from 3 to 6, the whole of Cambridgeshire will have a power cut. That will not happen. There'll be little pockets of Cambridgeshire, there'll be little pockets of Norfolk, there'll be little pockets of Bedfordshire. So if they happen, they will be spread out. And you might find yourself in a situation where your neighbour, who's a 15-minute walk away or a half-hour walk away, may not have their power cut when yours has been cut, and that's deliberate because the energy infrastructure providers want to, as I say, have pockets of power cuts if they happen, so that if you're in a situation where your neighbour is a short distance away, a 5-minute drive, a half-an-hour walk, then you can spend that power cut afternoon or 3-hour period with somebody who doesn't have their power cut. And that's a deliberate and conscious decision on the part of the infrastructure providers to enable people to go somewhere warm if they're in an area where their power has been cut for that 3-hour period. And if it happens, then all those affected will get at least 24 hours notice, which isn't a long time, but that is at least 24 hours. You may find yourself getting 48 hours or a longer period of notice, because if they happen, then they will be planned. So the infrastructure providers will know it's coming. Every energy network provider, which is not the energy companies, it's not British Gas, it's not EDF, it's the people who do the infrastructure. They have what they call a priority services register, and as it says here, if you get onto that register, and I would suggest that anybody with a diagnosis of Parkinson's or anybody who lives with somebody with a diagnosis of Parkinson's should apply to be on the Priority Services Register. And once you're on that register, you will have a support line available to you 24 hours a day. You will have text alerts if, for example, there is going to be a planned power cut, tailored support, as it says, such as home visits. You will be advised if it's possible where there will be severe weather, and if the need arises, there's the option of free hotel accommodation overnight. So if you're not already on your energy network provider's priority services register, apply now is my strong advice. And as I say, I'm going to send these slides round, and this link here will take you to a website that will tell you who your energy network provider is. Council tax, some of you will know, I suspect that if you are living by yourself, you automatically get a 25% discount on your council tax. But in addition, there's also the council tax reduction, which is administered by local authorities. It's means tested, but it could mean up to 100% of your council tax is waived and you don't have to pay that. So it's worth investigating. You might not get it, but you've got nothing to lose to investigate, and you could investigate by contacting our helpline, because that's what they're there for. That's their sole purpose, is to support you in finding out what's available to you in every sense: health, social care, benefits, etc., and then help you access that. So do not hesitate to ring that helpline if you want to find something out or check something. And then there are other sources of financial support. There's another local authority administered payment, which is a discretionary housing payment, which, as it suggests, is discretionary, so nobody has a right to that, and it is for people who are struggling with housing related costs. So it could be for those of you who still have a mortgage or pay rent, those costs. You could use it to pay council tax, because of course that is a housing related cost, so it might be worth investigating that. And then there's the central government but locally administered household support fund, and governments say that that's for those most in need to help with significantly rising living costs. So it's a bit ambiguous, it's not very precise as to who might be eligible for that, but it's something you could explore if you're in need. And then we ourselves, Parkinson's UK, offer a Parkinson's UK grant of up to £1,500. And that can be used to fund, as it says, electrical items, respite care, specialist equipment or activities. And there's an additional fund that I've found out about recently, which is why it's not on this slide, which is offered by British Gas. And it isn't just for people who source their gas from British Gas, it's for anybody. So I'm not a British Gas customer, but I could apply to this fund if were I in need. It's a fund that people can apply to if they're struggling paying their fuel bills. So that is available to you, and when I send these slides out, I'm going to add that information so you have that as well. And you can just click on that and it will take you straight to the British Gas site and tell you how you apply for that fund. Some of you will be aware of the discounts and cheaper transport you can have by virtue of either being a disabled person or an older person. Some bus services in England outside London have agreed with central government to limit their single fare charges to £2, but that's just until March of next year. You'll be aware, I suspect, that free bus travel is available if you travel after 9 or 9:30 for those who are in receipt of state pension or who have a health condition that, as it's termed in the legislation, has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on the ability to walk. Again, if you are unaware of this, or you were aware of this but not sure if you're eligible, contact us. There's also the disabled person's rail card and the senior person's rail card, each of which give a third off the cost of train travel, but you do need to pay for those, £20 in the case of disabled, £30 in the case of senior. Private transport, I suspect many in this room will be aware of blue badges. In England, they cost up to £10, more in Scotland and nothing in Wales. And those of you who are familiar with the blue badge will know that the blue badge enables you to park where other people can't, basically. In order to be eligible for the blue badge, you need to have be in receipt of a particular benefit, as it says there, for example, the PIP, moving around element, or you have to have an enduring and substantial disability which causes you, during the course of the journey, to be unable to walk or experience very considerable difficulty whilst walking. So, if you have that benefit, then you will get the blue badge automatically. You have to apply, but that you don't have to prove that you need it, because the fact that you have that benefit is proof in and of itself. But even if you don't have that benefit, you can still apply and be eligible for the blue badge. If you're wondering, does that apply to me? Should I bother? Do bother and contact us, and we will support you to make the application and gather together all that's needed to demonstrate that you need the blue badge. As some of you will know, the blue badge is linked to the individual. So, for example, if I had a blue badge and Julie gave me a lift today, which she did, we could, whilst I'm with Julie with my badge, park in a space that's reserved for people with blue badges. However, if I stepped out of the vehicle but left the blue badge in there, and Julie attempted to park in one of those places specifically for people with blue badges, she would not be allowed to do that. And there's quite significant penalties for misusing blue badges. But if you have the badge, if you've claimed the badge, it's in your name, you have it, you can use it in a taxi, if someone gives you a lift, in your own car, any of those things. But you need to be the person who is the owner, as it were, of the blue badge, and you need to have it with you. You can also get exemption from vehicle tax, and if it's applicable, clear air zone charges. If you're receiving the mobility rate of any of those benefits, DLA, personal independence payment, in Scotland, that is now called the adult disability payment. Some of you might also be aware of the mobility scheme. That allows you to exchange your mobility allowance that you might get with PIP, or if you're getting DLA already, DLA, and you can exchange that mobility component for an adapted vehicle. And as it says there, the qualifying disability allowances are the enhanced rate of personal independence payment mobility component, or the higher rate of disability living allowance, and a couple of others: war pensions, mobility supplement, and armed forces independence payment. You will need to have, as it says there, at least 12 months remaining on your qualifying allowance when you apply for the scheme. And as I say, I'll send these slides round. You click on here and you'll find out whether that's something that you might be eligible for. Bear with me. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of different places that you can find out more information and advice from on all of these things. Obviously, there's our helpline, and when you get this slide, if you don't know it already, you'll get access direct. This link will take you to our website, which will give you the helpline or the email that you can use to access the helpline. Then there's another organisation called Consumer Rights, and that specifically relates to fuel bills. National Energy Action is also, they offer some grants. They advise on energy efficiency, but at the moment they're not taking cases. So what you could do is go to the WISE group. They also advise on energy efficiency to bring those fuel bills down. For those who are experiencing debt, there's Step Change, who can advise on managing debt and advise on working with and negotiating with creditors where there's a need. And you'll all be familiar, no doubt, with Citizens Advice, and they offer all sorts of, a whole range of different types of advice and information. But for us, the relevant ones here might be debt. They do fuel advice, and they will negotiate with fuel providers if there's a need, if there's an escalating bill that's become unmanageable. So there's debt and there's other forms of advice. So whilst you can come to us to talk about your benefits that you might be eligible for or that you've applied for and haven't had a positive response, you could also go to Citizens Advice. Personally, I would advise coming to us because, for example, there are very many people who are of working age and have social care and or mobility needs, and they apply for personal independence payment, and that benefit is to help with the cost of social care and mobility needs, and they get knocked back by the government because the people who are doing the assessments do not understand Parkinson's. And I know this because I've looked at the guidance that the organisations provide to the people doing the assessments, and I've also met with the organisations and spoken to them about what their understanding of Parkinson's is, and it's not as it should be, let's put it that way. Which means that many people with Parkinson's, because the people doing the assessments don't have a sufficient understanding, are told that they are not eligible for the benefit. This is very often incorrect. And I know, having spoken to our advisors, who tell me that their overturn rate, i.e. changing from a no you're not eligible to yes you are eligible and this is how much you should get, the rate at which they make that change from no you're not eligible to yes you are and this is how much you'll get is just short of 100%. So if you find yourself applying for personal independence payment and your initial response, or the initial response that you get is no, come to us. If you apply for attendance allowance and the initial response that you get is no, you're not eligible, come to us, and we will work with you to challenge that initial decision. And as I say, our advisors tell me that the rate of success once they challenge initial decisions is nigh on 100%. I cannot emphasize that enough. Just because you get an initial rejection doesn't mean that's the end of the story. Come to us. So that's been pretty much a whistle-stop tour of various benefits, the cost of living payments, fuel-specific information and advice, where you can go for further advice, some stuff about transport, and where you can find out more, and the fact that I'm going to send this to you, so you'll all have this at your fingertips. Any questions?
The rebates on energy bills, is it dependent on you having a smart meter?
What, the £400?
Well, the general sort of rebates you get?
No, it's not dependent on whether you have a smart meter. No.
Sorry?
Right at the back, please.
I'm very confused about the extra fuel allowance. So we usually get, is it £300 or £200 between us or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not on any benefits, don't we get anything else?
It depends on your circumstances. So the £400, everybody in this room is going to get that.
Well, my household, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other benefits that I've been talking about depend on your circumstances. But even if you're not claiming a means tested benefit, if you don't have attendance allowance, if you don't have pension credit, just before I continue, I would re-emphasise, consider applying, because they do open the door to other funds. But even if you don't, even if you're not getting either of those, then there are other options. So for example, that British Gas Trust Fund, you could apply to that. You could apply to us. You could apply to the, there are other listed organisations.
£330 a month.
Yeah, it's very expensive. It's unmanageably expensive for so many people. It's probable it will go up because there is, whilst there is the energy price guarantee in place until March, that's only gonna it's not going to cap bills, but it does mean that bills in an average household where people pay by direct debit. Sorry?
£330 a month is more than a cap, isn't it?
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a price guarantee. It's a bit of a misnomer, to be honest, because it isn't a guarantee. What it is that if a person is in an average household and pays by direct debit, both of those things have to apply. If those two things are in place, then it's probable you will not pay over 2,500 in a year for your fuel. But there's lots of caveats and provisos in there, as you will have seen. And you're right.
I am paying £40
Sorry?
I am paying £40
Yeah.
Do
That's
they
what-
actually say what
So
they
why
class?
haven't they put it down?
That's a question you'll have to put to Sunak, our new PM.
Do they class what they class as an average house? What is their definition of an average? They don't actually tell us.
Nope, they don't define that. It's most probably 2 parents, 2 kids, something like that. Most probably.
I think what a lot of people
Bear
don't
with me just for a moment.
Sorry.
Are there any benefits which you could claim purely as a result of having been diagnosed? So even if it isn't affecting you in any way, bad way,
Mhm.
are you likely to get any benefit because you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's?
No.
No.
All the benefits I've talked about are either supposedly to replace income, universal credit, pension credit, state pension, or to address the costs associated with having increased social care needs and increased mobility needs. So if today I am an undiagnosed person and then come Saturday, tomorrow, I'm
Exactly.
diagnosed with Parkinson's,
Yeah.
on Saturday I'm no more eligible to anything than I am today.
Good, okay, that's great, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of people don't understand the price cap. What it means is that the unit price and the standing charge per day is capped, but not how much energy you actually use.
Exactly. I don't know if everybody heard that, but in fact, I'm going to give you the microphone. It's mobile. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Right, I think a lot of people are confused about the energy price cap. What it really means is that the price per standing charge per day and the price of the unit is capped. It doesn't cap how much energy you use.
Excellent. Very well clarified. Thank you very much. So, if you are in a position where you need to have your heating on quite a high level all the time, that so-called energy price guarantee is not a guarantee at all. You're absolutely right. Yes, please.
I'd like to ask you something about the attendance allowance. I would hope that everybody in this room who is eligible has attendance allowance. But you personally will be very familiar with the form, which I would say is daunting. I managed to get this for my mother a few years ago, and since then I've helped friends and neighbours fill the form in. Now, I'm very, very pleased to hear you say today that we have the helpline at Parkinson's UK, but in my head it would be unfeasible for somebody to be on the phone for 5 hours with Parkinson's UK to get help to fill in the attendance allowance form. So could you advise us here where someone would go if they're struggling? Because I've come across some extremely intelligent people who have struggled filling in that damn form. So if you could tell me where would you funnel people for help with that?
You could go to Citizens Advice, but you could come to us, and we would not do it over the phone. I might ring up the Parkinson's line and say, I need to fill in the attendance allowance form and I've got no idea where to begin. It's daunting, as you say, which it is. And then they would identify a local advisor, local Parkinson's advisor, who would meet me physically, face to face, in person, sit down, go through the form.
Excellent. Where would you obtain the form?
You can either order it via the links that will be on this presentation, so you could get it from your local authority. Is that right, Julie?
It's the Department of Work and Pensions. You go onto the website and order it online, or there's a phone number as well.
Yeah. Or if you do contact us, we'll provide it.
There is another organisation that can help people help me apply for attendance allowance, and that is the Carers Trust.
Yeah, there is.
They sat with me for 3 hours filling in the form. I applied first of all the first time to Citizens Advice Bureau and I was declined. But when I applied with the help of the Carers Trust, I got it.
Yeah. This is
and
why.
the carers allowance for me, which I didn't know was available for me.
That's why, although there is Citizens Advice, and in fact there's Age UK, both of whom provide advice services and will fill a form in with you, I would advise coming to us, and not because Parkinson's is the best organisation ever and it's better than Citizens Advice, it's better than Age UK, it's because we know the condition much better than Citizens Advice. It's a generalist advice agency, and even Age UK. So that's why I emphasise coming to Parkinson's UK rather than the others.
I did apply a while back for Citizens Carers Allowance for my husband, and basically they turned around and said, well, you've got too much income coming in, you can't apply for anything.
Ring the helpline.
Yeah.
Because they might be right, but equally they might be wrong. So you've nothing to lose by ringing the helpline and saying, these are my circumstances, is there anything that I can apply for? And the worst that will happen is the person you speak to says, unfortunately your circumstances are such that you can't apply for anything, but they might say, yes, you can apply for this, or yes, you can apply for pension credit and get 10 pence a week and therefore get access to the other funds. It's always worth the phone call. It is always worth the phone call. And whoever you speak to will either refer you to a colleague to do this, or they'll do it themselves. They'll do a full benefit check and see whether you're eligible, and then support you in making the claims.
Yeah. Well, there's just one thing. I'm not very good with computers. That is, I'm absolutely useless. Could you possibly send me all these details through the post?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
What I'll do is I'll send the information by post to. There you are.
So sorry?
I'll send it by Caroline.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a question here when you, he's
Ah, sorry. Yeah.
I came from the New Forest just over a year ago, where we had the New Forest Disabilities Group, which were extremely helpful in filling the form.
Yeah, you're right. There's often organisations that are specific to a particular area that operate locally, and they can be sources of support as well. And I suspect that Julie might have something to say in regard to that.
No, it wasn't about that. It was just a little tip.
Do you want to? Just for the
Just a little tip. They normally come date stamped, the attendance allowance form, with a limit, about a month's limit of when you can get them back in. You'll lose benefit if you don't get them in by then, but you also don't hold on to them, because you're going to need to get an appointment with an advisor, and they're going to need that period of time to get that done. So just that little tip.
Yeah. Very wise advice, and I emphasise again, if you contact us and say I need to apply for attendance allowance, they'll do all that, and therefore that time limit will be addressed, because they'll get forms that fit in with the timings of making support available.
Are there any grants that a company can apply for doing access modifications to a building or premises for people with Parkinson's movement?
That's outside my area of knowledge. I don't know what an organisation delivering that service might be able to get from government. I'm sorry, I just don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Can I just say that I don't know whether it still exists, but I used to work in local government, and it used to be the case that it was worth applying to the local council. Whether they still have a pot to help with adaptations, I don't know, but it used to be the
local
case.
councils used to do it.
Local, yeah.
Yeah, that's
so,
it. If I start there, it'll be something to council.
exactly.
An individual can seek funding to support with adaptations, but I don't know if a company can access that money. I don't know, but
access to Parkinson person seems to be, it could make a difference.
as advised, probably your first port of call is the local authority.
I know they put rails on help doors, out on down doors and things like that.
That's occupational therapy.
Oh, yeah.
That's OT.
Thank you.
John, last question.
When you apply for a blue badge, if the carer you've got has got health conditions as well, is there any strength in the application?
No, it's just for the individual.
I used to have one and took it away, but he's not worth one.
Thank you all for the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know if we use this. I shall. Thank you for Sue. What a complex subject. I got to say, I sat there and I started counting, and I gave up at about 30 different categories of benefits. I think an invaluable session. Certainly, we will post the presentation on our website, and I'll make it available on the next email out. But I think invaluable. What a complex situation we've allowed ourselves to get into. Sort of various governments just piling a new benefit in, a new benefit. Take this one away, add that one. The simpler we can get this, the sooner the better, because I'm certain it will save money and it will get the money to where it really needs to be. So thank you so much. I think an invaluable session. Please show your appreciation.